The black dragon image threw a fit behind Li Jingtian, wanting to break out of its shackles, but the kid had the dragon powerless under his thin arm. Even the world started taking different hues. On one side, Li Jingtian's power was still going strong, causing a veritable storm to blow over, while on the other, there was only peace and serenity behind the boy. Even sunshine warmed the gentle nature. The black dragon's onslaught held no sway here. How is this possible? Chapter 230 The Legend of a Monster. Chapter 230 The Legend of a Monster. Steward Zhua, we know our wrongs. Spare us. Sly Demon rolled on the ground begging. What Steward Zhua? It should be Daddy Zhua. Let us go, we won't do it again. Scrooge Demon was wailing in pain. What Daddy Zhua? It should be Granddaddy Zhua. Please. Violent Demon was even crying, but he didn't get to finish as he glared at Scrooge Demon. Then he punched his face. Damn it, you dare take advantage of me? Scrooge Demon held his purple eye, having no clue what happened. But Wimp Demon couldn't take the pain and said, Elder bro, it was the second bro calling him daddy. Then you started calling him granddaddy. Don't blame him. Widening his eyes, Violent Demon cuffed Wimp Demon. Bastard, silence is frickin' golden. Why do you hit me when it was all your fault? Scrooge Demon instantly understood, having heard Wimp Demon. He charged with a rage-filled fist. Wimp Demon was glum, and even though he didn't join the hustle and bustle, he circled behind eldest brother and whacked him with a fist whenever he had the chance. Third bro, Sly Demon, who wished for nothing more than to see the chaos blow out of proportions, held his head from the pain while cheering from the side. The four thus entered their routine squabble, making it all so lively. Zhuofan's face twitched from all the ruckus, popping a third vein. He never met such hard-to-deal-with weirdos. They even had time to quarrel while being tortured by the bloodworm. It seems a bit of pain is not up to your standards. Then how about we kick things up a notch? Zhuofan made another sign. The four demons spurted blood and turned blood red all over as they scrambled from the pain. It was so excruciating they hadn't had the mind to quarrel anymore. Zhuofan panted, almost blowing his top at the four. When he calmed down, he said, Elderly, who is that Gu Santong? Why is he so dreadful? Shaking his head, Li Jingtian sighed. I am not clear either, but legends say Gu Santong is called Invincible Scamp, undefeated throughout his life. 3 centuries ago he caused a storm through Tianyu, throwing the empire on the brink of collapse. He later vanished into thin air, never hearing from him since. I never thought we'd meet him here. What, 300 years ago? How is he looking so young if he's so old? Zhuofan was shocked. Li Jingtian was also puzzled. I am not sure either. I only heard rumors about him. If he truly is the invincible scamp, then he is indeed 3 centuries old. Or perhaps, he is Invincible Scamp's descendant, carrying his name. Hi, Invincible Scamp Gu Santong has caused immense waves with his indomitable power at the time. How can someone else have his title? Moreover, you've seen his method. If he is not the real Invincible Scamp, how could you have ended up in such a sorry state? Violent Demon shouted his mockery, while the other demons wailing at the side turned into a creepy combination with snickering in the mix. Li Jingtian caressed his beard and nodded. The 4 little shits' words were mostly senseless blabber, dumb as wood, but they spoke reason sometimes. He didn't believe there was anyone outside this legendary invincible scamp that could bring him to such a sorry state. Zhuofan snapped a glance at the 4. Elderly doesn't know about Gu Santong, but you do. Damn right. This geezer may be old, but he knows shit, having been born way before the war 300 years ago. Violent Demon mocked. Zhuofan scowled. You're not much older than Elderly, so how do you know then? Steward Zhua, there's something you're missing. When Gu Santong was causing havoc in the empire, he not only shamed the 7 houses, but the entire Tianyu Empire. This made his name taboo to the whole empire. He even gobbled those 8th grade ones that took 1,000 years to grow. How could Pil King Hall sit still after that? So their elders chased after him. The kid didn't use any martial art, but his fists are insanely powerful. In just a single move, the elders were wiped out completely. I am sure this old geezer here knows the taste of that fist the best. Violent Demon mocked Li Jingtian. Li Jingtian nodded, breaking out in sweat just thinking about it. In their clash, Gu Santong didn't even punch, only threw him like nothing and already gave him a deep wound. If it were a punch instead, his life would have been forfeited. Such outstanding power! Taking a deep breath, Li Jingtian shuddered from the memory and fear crawled into his heart. This never happened in all his long years as Mad Dipper. Shuofan understood his state of mind and paled as well. He patted Elder Li's shoulder in comfort, and spoke with seriousness, and then, Then Pilking Hall requested assistance from Regent Estate and they sent their elders on the kids' trail, only to suffer the same fate. All the while Gu Santong was rampant in robbing ingredients everywhere he went, even attacking the warehouses of the 7 houses and leaving them with nothing. Without a choice, the always squabbling 7 houses put aside their differences and worked together for the first time. They issued the worst and most cruel order since the Empire's existence, the Demon Purging Decree. Say what? Zhuofan's eyes widened in shock. He recalled how everyone spoke of this Demon Purging Decree as the most gruesome thing in existence. And the first use was on Gu Santong. But how was that kid still alive now? Just what kind of power does he have? How could he fight against an entire nation and only as a damn profound heaven expert? And since they became enemies, mercy and regrets have no place here. Zhuofan snickered and nodded. The little imp is starting to grow on me. Li Jingtian looked long at Zhuofan and found his impression was not unlike his own. In this cruel world it was kill or be killed. Even innocent killings were the order of the day. And in the case of enemies there was even less remorse. Steward Zhua is truly a man who will make countless sacrifices. Li Jingtian sighed inside. And then, Zhuofan and Li Jingtian asked in unison. Glaring at his 3 brothers to curb their interruption, Violent Demon continued. What followed next was a prime example of how a true demonic cultivator should act. In but half a year, the kid fulfilled his promise, wiping out every place he went to until his onslaught had covered half the empire. Any and all who heard his coming sent the people fleeing for their lives. The 7 houses venerable joined hands to surround him, to no avail. The kid still went on killing regardless of opposition. He then started to be referred as the all-ravaging child. To show that everywhere he went, he left ravaged lands behind him. The imperial family could no longer take it, seeing the 7 houses in disarray. If it didn't intervene now, the empire would be done for. So it sent its 50 divine dragons. Violent Demon started sputtering as he spoke from the excitement, as if he was the one laying Tianyu to ruin instead. Zhuofan waved him off. Hold on. How many divine dragons was that again? Violent Demon raised 5 fingers. 50 why? SSS. Gasping, Zhuofan was shocked. There were 50 divine dragons then? You mean to say 50 Jade Flute Divine Sword Fengqiubai at peak radiant stage? Steward Zhua, you've got it all wrong. The aptitudes of divine dragons at the time weren't as high as the current ones. How could there be 50 Jade Flute Divine Sword? Zhuofan nodded and sighed. 50 Jade Flute Divine Sword was a dreaded sight. More to the point, it would be even more damn frightening if the kid escaped from them as well. Before he even had the chance to calm his thoughts, Violent Demon continued. The imperial family was still going strong at the time, having around 20 experts like Jade Flute Divine Sword. And the other 30 were at least in the 5th layer of radiant stage. 3 among them were even called immemorial sages by the world, stronger than even Jade Flute Divine Sword. Even Invincible Scamp had a hard time dealing with them. What? Zhuofan cried and looked at Li Jingtian. They too were incredulous the imperial family ever held so much power. Easily guessing their thoughts, the 4 scheming demons started their creepy jeer. Hi, how ignorant you are. You think Tianyu's imperial family and the 7 houses of now only have this little power after 1,000 years? Just 3 centuries ago, the imperial family had 50 divine dragons, the regent estate 100 radiant stage experts and the other houses in the tens. This is what kept the houses in a delicate balance. But in the war with Gu Santong, the 7 houses' united force of hundreds of radiant stage experts were almost wiped out. Even the imperial family's 50 divine dragons were destroyed, leaving but only the 3 immemorial sages alive. This battle waged for a whole year in a devastating fashion. Two of the sages ultimately succumbed in this war of attrition, leaving behind the strongest immemorial sage to contend with the little monster. But at this time, both of them were nearing their limits, with the end looking to be drawn in mutual destruction. Zhuo Fan and Li Jingtian were wide-eyed. Thank God Invincible Scamp wrecked Tianyu 300 years ago, or the Luo clan would have never got to rise above the 7 houses, not even in 100 years, not to mention 10. Zhuo Fan wiped his brow, cheering inside. By the way, how did their fight end? With the kid still alive, did the last sage die? If that is so, why then the kid hid himself for the past centuries? Nodding, Violent Demon smiled. Precisely. The last sage was very smart. He knew if both died, the imperial family would be left stranded, and the 7 houses ultimately dividing Tianyu. So at the very end, he read the kid's nature and resorted to shamelessly dupe him into a 1,000-year agreement. Chapter 232 A Stubborn Heart. Chapter 232 A Stubborn Heart. The 5 divine dragons of the imperial family, the strongest in Tianyu. And yet, the highly placed members of the 7 houses had limited knowledge about them, limited to Jade Flute Divine Sword Feng Choubai and Monochrome Chess Sage Sima Hui. The House Lords were the only ones entitled to the matters pertaining 3 centuries ago, that the invincible Scamp Gu, the devil who pushed Tianyu on the brink of collapse, was now a divine dragon. But this resolution only brought more problems than solved. Zhuo Fan squinted at the 4 demons. Since the imperial family is rearing this behemoth, what is it doing getting scared of the 7 houses? Steward Zhuo, you clearly know nothing. That last immemorial sage was the strongest in Tianyu, on the brink of breaking out of the radiant stage's shackles and reaching the void consciousness and becoming undying. A pity he met Gu Santong, that little monster. Regardless of how strong he was, he couldn't stand the kid's 10 punches. But even so, thanks to his consciousness on the brink of becoming void, he endured the kid's onslaught for a full hour before having his soul scattered. Gu Santong admired his dedication, who was willing to stake his soul in winning the bet. This was how the man protected Tianyu's imperial family, and forced the kid to stick to his promise. But Gu Santong was no fool either. He resigned to only protecting the imperial family and nothing more. Thus he was the imperial family's strongest shield, but not their spear, ignoring any orders. Even so, the imperial family still won. Would anyone dare disobey them, when they had him on their side? Of course, his existence was never accepted by the 7 houses. If he went berserk again, what would become of the 7 houses? So, they went to the emperor again and again for a resolution, or they would be leaving the empire. For lack of a better choice, the imperial family could only ask for the kid to make a vow as a divine dragon to not attack the 7 houses unless provoked. Also, the imperial family will have him under strict supervision. He is not to step 1 foot outside the imperial capital without the emperor's explicit approval. With how Tianyu lost its backbone in that war, if the 7 houses withdrew, the empire was open to foreign invasions. And the kid had no choice but to agree to this and protect the imperial family through the oath. The 7 houses begrudgingly compromised as well, and the imperial family changed his title into Invincible Scamp, as if to mean all that happened was just a kid throwing a tantrum. But now, the Invincible Scamp who's been locked away for 3 centuries by the imperial family was set free by the emperor. Violent Demon and the 3 demons wore their brows in a frown. Zhuo Fan and Li Jingtian nodded inside. Gu Santong was indeed savage, but also honorable, far more than these little shits. Zhuo Fan squinted at the 4 and snickered. Is that all? Pretty much. Now then, Steward Zhuo, you have the boundless honor of listening to the legends of the much greater, much more heroic 4 demons than even the likes of Invincible Scamp Gu Santong. Correct, those 4 are without a doubt yours truly. The demonic heroes for scheming. Not interested. With a sneer and a sign, the 4 demons started wailing in torment as they tousled the ground. Among the screams of pain they voiced their doubts. Steward Zhuo, what did we do this time? Is this how you repay us? Nothing bad, in fact you did exemplary work. I'm only dishing out premeditated punishment. Zhuo Fan snickered and cackled. The 4's hearts were in grief as they shouted, Steward Zhuo, you're breaking your promise. You said you'll forget about everything if we told you about Gu Santong. Fan nodded and flew to Gu Santong. He was there in a flash. Startled, Gu Santong turned to Fan. You're damn quick, you know that? Those 4 fools have nothing on you. What did you find this time? Take it out. But he couldn't finish as the sight of the ingredient in Fan's hands had him wide-eyed. 7th grade ingredient. You actually found a 7th grade ingredient? Just lucky, I guess. Fan nodded. Gu Santong took it and drooled. He was moved to tears. A 7th grade ingredient. Oh, I haven't had one in 3 centuries. Those bastards in yellow only know how to starve me with wretched 1st and 2nd grade ingredients. It took me 300 years to reach the 2nd layer of radiant stage. Gu Santong lamented his grief, while Fan nodded inwardly. Now he knew who he was talking about. They were the imperial capital's guards. He found another big secret as well. His cultivation didn't rely on training, or maybe training did very little. Only eating ingredients increased his strength. Curses, if I take him in, I'll go broke before I get to raise him. On second thought, I might not need to feed him anyway since he is already invincible. Yeah, no problem. Then it suddenly occurred to him. The imperial family definitely has high-grade ingredients. Yet, over the last centuries they've only been feeding him 1st and 2nd grade. Was it done on purpose to hold this monster's growth in check? So the more power he has, the harder it is for the imperial family to control him. Squinting, Fan realized Gu Santong was unlike the rumors painted him as the strongest in the empire. At least the imperial family seemed to have a way to keep him in check. Otherwise there was no reason to stunt his cultivation for so many years. Fan took a deep breath. As of yet, he was unsure if this conjecture was real or not, but he couldn't ignore it either or he'd be suffering at the hands of the imperial family sometime in the future. The imperial family still had uses for them and they were relying on the imperial family, but who was to say when all of this could just go belly up? In short, there are no everlasting friends. Anyone can become an enemy. Fan's eyes flashed coldly. Gu Santong suddenly frowned and cried out. He looked at the ingredient and shook his head. This one is also fishy. Why are all the ingredients you find so queer? His heart drumming in his chest, Fan swallowed dryly. Ha ha ha, what could possibly be wrong? Gu Santong snapped the ingredient in 2 and pointed. See that? Fan saw the core of the ingredient in shock. Gu Santong broke it right where the bloodworm laid its eggs. The middle of this 7th grade ingredient was white as the moon and released a deep chill. But in this whiteness there were some grayish dots, bloodworm's eggs. The average man would definitely miss them even with scrutiny. Not even a radiant stage expert searching it with his soul could find them. Li Jingtian bore testament to that. Yet this little monster actually did it. Not only found them, but even accurately struck their exact spot. Even Fan had to admire his prowess. This ain't the time to gawk. Wiping his brow, Fan squinted and faked. What are you saying? I can't see anything. Gu Santong pointed his childlike finger. See these dots, they don't match the ingredient. They are in fact closely resembling the worm in the last ingredient. They must be its eggs. Fan's heart sank and his legs almost gave. He looks like a clueless brat, but his eyesight is spot on. He can even see similarities between the eggs and the bloodworm. Fan was gripped with fear. If the kid blames me for the worm and the eggs, a single hit from him will reduce me to pulp. But that didn't happen as Gu Santong waved the eggs off the ingredient and started chewing it. He chewed as he smiled. I can't blame you for this, just like the ingredient with the worm in it. How can I throw away a 7th grade ingredient? I don't mind taking it, ha ha ha. Gu Santong laughed brightly, and Fan felt his heart bleed. Not only I lost a fortune but I couldn't get the kid either. I lost everything. But as he was mourning the loss, Gu Santong's words drifted over. Hey, you're really good at finding ingredients. Now not only striking back at him was impossible, even fleeing was out. Fan was glum. But he showed a smile to Wimp Demon, patting him. Wimp Demon, you're a nice guy. Far better than those idiots. You've been tousled by the bloodworm enough, go take a rest. What? Wimp Demon whooped in joy while the other 3 demons cried in dissent. No way. Didn't you say demonic cultivators don't stick to their word? Grinning, Fan mocked. It's no promise but a reward. Then he ignored the three. Chapter 235 The Thunder Array Trap. Chapter 235 The Thunder Array Trap. Rumble. On top of a tall mountain from south to north, from west to east, 4 cliffs stood. These cliffs were eternally shrouded by dark clouds with rumbling thunders striking them at any given moment. But the way these bucket-sized lightning bolts slammed into the 4 cliffs was akin to lightning dragons. They struck them and then returned back to the clouds to begin the cycle anew. From afar, it looked like a nest of lightning dragons roaming around the cliffs. "Is this Thunderswarm Mountain?" Shuafan asked as he watched the spectacle. The 4 scheming demons nodded with a pained face, having vividly recalled the torment they had to endure inside. Violent Demon found it difficult to even speak. "We've been stuck in there for 60-odd years, having lightning pass through us every second of every day. If it weren't for that dumbass leaving a hole behind, we might still be in there. Those were the worst years ever, Wah." Violent Demon cried as he pointed at the cliffs. The other demons were also tearing up. Li Jingtian's face twitched. He used to feel sad and bitter as well, but when the 4 described it, he felt disgusted instead. "Didn't someone just save you? Why aren't you seeing him in a good light? Do such people even exist that would even call their rescuer a dumbass?" Shuafan stood unflinching in the face of those crocodile tears. His eyes ever shined as he gazed at the cliffs. "He isn't a dumbass at all. In fact, he didn't poke a hole in the barrier out of carelessness. He let them go on purpose?" Li Jingtian cried. Shuafan nodded. "This barrier may be fitting this place, raised on top of this natural array, but it is very intricately and painstakingly placed to leave almost no loopholes. That cliff, for example, is one such hole. Only an erudite could see it." "What, on purpose? Then how come we didn't see anyone when we got out?" The 4 stopped crying on the spot and looked at each other baffled. They looked inwardly for an answer, but there didn't seem to be anyone on friendly terms with them besides those in the sect. Who could be so kind as to let them out? Scratching his nose, Shuafan smiled. "He must have done it for his own reasons, but he never would have imagined he helped me instead." "Ha! Don't dwell on it. What's crucial is that we set up an array and bait Gu Santong inside. This 6th grade array is slightly damaged. Once I fix it, its power will double." Shuafan pointed at the cliff. Li Jingta nodded and frowned. "Steward Zhua, are you sure the kid will enter? What if he sees the array and waits for us outside instead? We won't be able to hold on then." "No worries. Others will hesitate while he will jump straight in. Because he is the invincible scamp, undefeated throughout his life. He never suffered defeat, which makes him cocky. And cockiness leads to neglect. I believe there's not a best radiant stage sucker out there as this Gu Santong." Shuafan cackled with confidence. Li Jingtian gave a thumbs up. "Steward Zhua sees through everyone. My admiration for you knows no bounds. Enough sucking up to me. I am certain he'll go in, but I can't gauge his power, making success uncertain. But with this natural 6th grade array and with us controlling it, success will be ours. Otherwise," Shuafan frowned and sighed. 4 scheming demons jumped over and shouted, "What do you need us to do? Your job is to go in the array and distract Gu Santong." "No way. We have had enough of this array. Even in the demon scheming sect, everyone was against us controlling arrays. That's blatant discrimination." The 4 demons demanded fairness. Shuafan's face darkened. "You damn idiots. Of course no one will let you. They were afraid you'd go messing it all up, and you'll go farther than mere discrimination against them." His face was solemn. "I'm also discriminating against you. But don't you dare friggin' meddle with the array as I work on it. And you'd better listen to every one of my orders when Gu Santong gets inside and give your all while doing it. Or else." Zhuafan's finger moved, sending the 4 demons shivering into bobbing their heads. Then they instantly switched to an aggrieved expression and kicked the stones at their feet in dissent. "Why is everyone hell-bent against us? We are 4 demonic heroes, what's not to like?" Chapter 236 Invincible Fist. Chapter 236 Invincible Fist. Boom! Lightning struck Gu Santong constantly, smashing him into another hole. Even a peak radiant stage expert would have a hard time facing such a hit. Yet, Fan was still unclear if all of this was enough for the likes of Gu Santong. He was invincible scamp, the strongest in Tianyu. His eyes fixed on the settling dust, Fan's heartbeat quickened. When the dust cleared, his eyes widened and gasped. Gu Santong was still covering his ears and standing there, unharmed. But his face took a darker shade out of anger. For scheming demons, how did he take on the lightning? You should have seen it clearly from your angle. Fan roared through the transmission. For scheming demons turned into gray afterimages around Gu Santong as they reported in fear, Steward Zhua. This kid didn't stop one lightning. Each bolt was a direct hit, but he is still standing there like nothing happened. What? For scheming demons report froze Fan. You mean to tell me lightning doesn't do a damn thing to this kid? Was my assumption wrong? Steward Zhua, what now? He is just standing here in the array, but we can't do anything to him. Something bad is bound to happen if this goes on. And once he gets out, he'll want to settle the score. We'll be finished. Squinting, Fan said, Elderly, the lightning isn't his weakness, but he always shouts profanities at it. I was wrong, he just hates lightning. But this 6th grade array is built on a natural formation. Let's use all we have on him. No matter how ridiculously powerful he is, it'll be worth it if we can wear him out even a little. All right. Li Jingtian agreed. Fan sighed. Despite saying that, he had a feeling they'd fail from the moment he set up the array. As this was all based on the premise his guess was right that Gu Santong was weak to lightning. He was now holding the fates of everyone in his hands. He knew there was only a 50% chance of success. But he wanted to get Gu Santong so badly that he was willing to gamble on that measly 50%, using even the lives of others. But even in this case he had a failsafe. Just escaping was also 50-50. If Gu Santong bore through it as well, they were dead. This was indeed a very risky move from his part, totally opposite for his usual style. Steward Zhua, I'm ready. How are you? Li Jingtian sent over. Fan sighed and his hands moved. I as well. Begin. The two signs synced. Thunder rolled and lightning flickered. From the deep and rumbling dark clouds, tens of thousands of lightning bolts barreled down. That immense power caused even Thunder Swarm Mountain to shake. It meant that even the 6th grade array was having a hard time withstanding such might. The 4 scheming demons were slack-jawed, crying out in fear as they retreated. They no longer dared staying close to Gu Santong. The lightning this time may very well smash them to bits. Gu Santong, with his ears covered, looked at the thunder with pure loathing and anger. Gu Santong, if you still stand after this, then you must be my karma coming back to bite me. Taking a deep breath, Fan gnashed his teeth and his hand sign changed. Boom! Hundreds of thousands of lightning bolts rained down. They twisted around each other and formed a lightning dragon that coiled around each cliff as it roared. Such destructive power seemed to wish for the annihilation of the whole world. Fan was certain that the lightning dragon would turn this thunderswarm mountain, and everything in 100 miles barren. Only the array controllers would survive. He never hoped it would come to this. But he was the demonic emperor, rising on top of a mountain of bones. If he wanted invincible scamp's power, mercy for some miscellaneous creatures had no place here. Roar! The entire sky was roaring as it came crashing down. Gu Santong felt the sheer brutality aiming at him, forced to squint at the eye-piercing light. His ears rang from the sudden explosions and only now, finally, his hands released them, forming a small fist. Then, a punch soared straight for the lightning dragon's head, releasing an odd ripple. Gu Santong didn't even put the lightning dragon in his eyes. His face was calm, yet the ripple he released flew like a meteor, pushing back at the lightning dragon. He may be a child at heart and mind, but everyone knows the chaos he caused Tianyu 300 years ago. It's not that easy to dupe him after all. This was Fan's plan all along. If they couldn't hold him with the array, then they'll throw in a play. They'd fake being victims as well, braving the danger of death for the kid's sake. This worked to explain why they were in the array, and also scored sympathy points with the kid. Without any real evidence, even if the kid was dubious, he couldn't just trash them when they were giving their all and finding him ingredients. So, Zhuofan and Li Jingtian never once showed themselves as the array worked, just so they could enact this play and give themselves a way out. Who'd have thought, however, that the 4 scheming demons Zhuofan asked to keep the kid busy went as far as punching him. Now this was throwing a wrench in his act. Steward Zhua, how about we throw these little shits to the wolves? Li Jingtian spoke with his eyes. Zhuofan squinted, as the 4 demons looked nervously at him. They could feel it in their bones how his next words had the power to save them and condemn them. If Zhuofan made them scapegoats, they'd have no chance at all, except at a swift death. At this very moment no one moved. Gu Santong stared at Zhua, waiting for his answer. Li Jingtian was also looking at him, waiting for his decision. For scheming demons were begging him with their faces, their miserable and pitiful faces. Everyone's lives rested on him. Zhuofan finally opened his mouth and instead of answering, he gave Gu Santong a question. Do you know arrays? No. Gu Santong was blunt. I guessed as much. That's great. Gu Santong glared at him and Zhuofan rushed to say, don't misunderstand. I only want to explain to you clearly so as to not weigh your conscience with innocent killings. Zhuofan rubbed his chin as he began. Arrays are graded from 1 to 12 according to their power. As for their type, they are trapping, killing, and bewildering arrays. That thunder array was of the killing type. But it also had a trapping array hidden. Did you notice? Gu Santong nodded. He knew the second he got in the array he'd have to smash his way through if he wanted out. But did you notice the bewildering array as well? Zhuofan gave a vague smile. Gu Santong shook his head. You're saying a bewildering caught me? But then he snorted, no way. I didn't feel any illusions around me. What I see may be fake, but my nose has never let me down. That guy hit me and I caught him red-handed. Being pointed at, Violent Demon shivered in fear. In that moment he was more of a wimp than Wimp Demon. Everyone looked at him with derision. This is the first goddamn time I'm hiding behind fourth bro. But in the face of all this, Zhuofan waved it off. I didn't say you were caught in an illusion, but he was. Let me ask you this. Did you 4 really attack Gu Santong? Shuddering, the 4 reacted to Steward Zhua's meaning. He was giving them a way out. So they shook their heads and bowed. We thought you were someone else. Please forgive us. Is that so? Then who was that little monster you kept raving on about? Gu Santong stared them down. The 4 pointed at Zhuofan on the spot. Him. Zhuofan's face twitched and his anger boiled. Wasn't that saying they wanted to kill him? But this was not the time to bicker with these 4 morons. Gu Santong looked dubious at him. You're also a monster. Before meeting you they indeed called me that. With an awkward chuckle, Zhuofan's fists crunched and lightning wings unfolded behind him. Can anyone do this? Gu Santong's eyes twitched. I see. I always thought you used a flying demonic treasure when in fact it is tied to your body. You're indeed monstrous enough. That ended that. Zhuofan knew he guarded the imperial family for 300 years, all for the sake of a promise. But only after being his prisoner did he fully understand that to this kid, words were gold, and he needed a good reason when handling anyone. When he slaughtered half the empire's cities, that was because others pushed him. He didn't start it. So Zhuofan made a heroic, reckless and gutsy gamble. But even this had only a 50-50 chance. If Gu Santong was still stubborn they could only resign to their fate and the kid's temper. Thankfully, the kid was quite moral, not swinging around his weight without proper reason. Taking a deep breath, Zhuofan smiled. But then Gu Santong suddenly said, hold on, since you all did this for an ingredient, where is it? They all froze up again. An 8th grade ingredient was a heavenly treasure. How were they supposed to just find it? Gu Santong's glare once again descended. Chapter 238 Lightning Canyon appears. Chapter 238 Lightning Canyon appears. Oh. If there's no 8th grade ingredient, then all of this is a lie cooked up by all of you. Gu Santong eyed each one with suspicion. Violent Demon was frantic. You fist-leveled everything in 100 miles. That ingredient is dust by now. Bullshit. Gu Santong cursed. An 8th grade ingredient is a worldly treasure, possessing spirituality. If you could think of burrowing underground at a crucial moment, then so could it. To then it must have fled. Wimp demon whimpered. Gu Santong snorted, more bullshit. My nose can pick up its scent even 1,000 meters below. How the hell can it escape my notice? To then, it was Sly Demon's turn to take the stands and patch the growing hole in the lie. But he stuttered so greatly, none of his words made sense, despite how much his eyes showed he wanted to. Gu Santong snorted, eyeing them with thick bloodthirst. Humph, without the 8th grade ingredient all you've said so far was a big fat lie. You are the ones who set up the lightning array. They were all nervous now and chilled to the bone. Hold on. Zhuofan shouted with a pained face. The 8th grade ingredient is indeed real. It truly wanted to flee, but I managed to grab it just as the lightning array crumbled. You didn't pick up its scent because I placed it in my ring. Zhuofan's hand revealed a glowing ingredient. The sweet smell it released worked to soothe everyone's weary minds. Gu Santong was dumbstruck. The 8th grade ingredient was real. Even if he didn't believe Zhuofan, he now had no choice but to. The proof was incontestable. The 6th reason for rushing into the array held strong. What they did in the array only they knew, and no matter how they explained it, Gu Santong would never find the truth. But now he no longer cared. With an 8th grade ingredient in hand, what's the big problem being trapped in an array by them? This compensation was enough if he even had to go through a second array. Licking his dry lips, Gu Santong scratched his head in embarrassment. Ops, I've been wrong about you guys. You really gave it all for my sake. Then is this 8th grade ingredient mine? Zhuofan was silent, having to go through great difficulty to squeeze a nod. Gu Santong then took it and threw the ingredient into his mouth and started chomping. In fact, even if you did set the array up, it's all water under the bridge. If every array has an 8th grade ingredient, I'd jump in head first, ha. Rest easy, our efforts weren't for nothing. Zhuofan smiled but was crying inside. His heart bled with every chomp. He got that 8th grade ingredient from Drifting Flowers Edifice's 100-pill meeting, and only the one. He was keeping it for a special occasion, alright? Who'd have thought it'd be wasted on Gu Santong to calm his anger? But it was either that or his life. This was Zhuofan's first time losing out to such an extent. While Gu Santong was gorging himself with the ingredient, Li Jingtian slipped next to him and patted him. It's only a worldly possession, Steward Zhua. Only by being alive will you get to have more of them. Yeah, I never knew Steward Zhua had an 8th grade ingredient. What's more, Steward Zhua loves us so much, he gave it up. We are touched. The 4 scheming demons sniffed. Zhuofan glared instead. Shut it. I've made an investment in you and I expect you to pay me back tenfold at the least. We'll first placate the devil, then we'll think of something later. Yes. They all nodded obediently. Especially the 4 demons, who looked at him with just a hint of respect. Unlike before when there was only fear. Rumble. A sudden thunderous noise traveled for thousands of miles. Zhuofan frowned and looked around. Isn't Thunderswarm Mountain flattened? Where is that noise coming from? Maybe it's a real thunderstorm. Li Jingtian scratched his beard. Zhuofan saw Gu Santong covering his ears and crouching his shivering body. Even his most delicious treat, the 8th grade ingredient, laid half-eaten on the ground. Violent Demon cried in joy. Steward Zhua, you're amazing, of ultimate cunningness to have dealt with the kid. Tell us, how did you poison him? Our plans have always been foiled by that godlike nose. Knock it off, I didn't do anything. Zhuofan glared at them, then turned to Gu Santong. It doesn't look like something's wrong with the kid. So it must be his mental state. Eh? Li Jingtian raised an eyebrow, but after a bit of mulling he cried, it's fear. How come the great Gu Santong actually knows fear? What? Zhuofan was startled and Li Jingtian explained. When I was teaching brats in Regent Estate, I was very strict. So much so, some weak-minded ones caved in just at my voice alone, taking the same posture as he is now. I'd usually go on and kick out anyone I've seen behaving like this. Without guts, I was not going to waste time on them. You're saying he's scared? But what could drive such fear into this little monster? Zhuofan's heart was perturbed as well. Rumble. The thunder only grew in intensity and Zhuofan looked startled at the sky. Then a bolt flashed out of the blue and the sky darkened as black as night, as if a huge hand swept over the area. Next, purple lightning began to fall non-stop. Each place they hit was turned to dust, wafting everywhere. Zhuo Fan's eyes widened and cried, "Lightning Canyon." Correct. This was one of the continent's 3 danger zones, Lightning Canyon. It was the place Zhuo Fan had been aiming for all this time, the Heavenly Emperor's remnant. Long Zhou once told him about it and has been preparing himself since. But having met with one strange and unavoidable event after another, he had to put them on hold. And now, with a flash, the Thunder Skylark's egg appeared in his hand. His eyes looked at this flickering egg with a bitter face. He felt regret. Why haven't I hatched this egg the moment I got here? Now that Thunder Swarm Mountain is gone, how do I do it? But even if he had, the chick wouldn't be of any use in the Lightning Canyon. If only I hatched it sooner, it would have matured after a few years. It was as if fate dictated it was not his time to enter Lightning Canyon. Watching the purple lightning falling from the clouds, Zhuo Fan sighed and flew away from them. Let's go. The other 5 were quick to follow. They all heard of the notorious Lightning Canyon's danger. Going in was suicide. The best way is to get out of here following Zhuo Fan. Luckily, Lightning Canyon just showed up and their speed was more than enough to get them in the clear. But they flew for a bit and Zhuo Fan looked back all of a sudden. Where's the brat, Gu Santong? He found that the bold and powerful invincible scamp was reacting like any child would in this situation. He was shivering and closing his ears, losing all reason out of fear. Ha ha ha, the kid is afraid of lightning. Where'd all that fierce attitude go? Violent Demon mocked. The other demons joined him, but Zhuo Fan was pausing in thought. Then he exclaimed, I get it. He isn't afraid of lightning but afraid of purple lightning. We were wrong from the start. Hi, Steward Zhuo, you're kidding. Who on earth isn't afraid of purple lightning? Even those sect leaders of ours would bolt at the sight of it. Violent Demon laughed. Shaking his head, Zhuo Fan's eyes were fixed on Gu Santong. This kid is different. The others had the bravery to run, but the kid is lacking even that. Just what is his connection with Lightning Canyon? Zhuo Fan suddenly said, Elderly, you and the demons leave. I'm getting him out. No, Steward Zhuo. Li Jingtian was anxious. Lightning Canyon is about to descend and you'll be soon crushed to death. You can't risk it. This time his whole body shivered. His diamond sand and unbreakable body was sporting cracks, and blood spilled from the force of the lightning. What? A 4th heaven purple lightning? Gasping, Zhuo Fan looked up to see the big hole was getting increasingly closer. And the closer it got, the stronger the lightning. If a 6th heaven lightning struck him, he would be pulverized in body and soul. Zhuo Fan was out of his depth this time. He looked at the shivering Gu Santong and patted his head. Who'd ever knew this would happen? That I would ultimately die saving a kid? I mean, I wouldn't be suffering so much if I haven't saved you. Is this my fate, all because of greed? Zhuo Fan shook his head and sighed. But I do not regret it. Few are the chances a man gets at life. I have failed this time, but even if it will be the next time, I'd still choose this path. I only hope there will be a next time. Clenching his eyes shut, Zhuo Fan held Gu Santong close, yet he looked quite at peace. He was a man of ambition, but even in the face of death, he would welcome it with open arms. Suddenly, an azure flame flitted from his forehead, covering the 2 of them in its glow. It was then when the purple lightning struck. The oddest thing happened. When the lightning touched the flame, it was melted down in a flash. One could see with the naked eye how the purple lightning was rendered useless. But when he entered the cover of the light, he blacked out. All while his arm still held Gu Santong close. The 2 floated like that among the red light, with only Gu Santong aware, moved seeing Zhuo Fan's pale face. Outside of the purple storm, not long after Lightning Canyon came, it vanished again. It left behind absolutely nothing. Gu Santong's 2 fists at least left dust, but the Lightning Canyon annihilated everything. It reshaped the land in its wake, leaving behind a place where not even dust remained. This child was hunted down with the demon-purging decree, and even a mere greeting would earn that person death. Reading all those books must have gotten to that clan's head to have welcomed their calamity into their house. Don't feel bad. That is also fate. Zhuofan patted his head. Is this why you turned into the Empire's enemy? Gu Santong nodded, his eyes taking a hint of savagery from the bitterness in his heart, but then sighed at the end. In the end I was too careless, agreeing to that old fart's promise. Now I am powerless to fight the 7 houses. You could have just broke your promise. A child's words do not hold weight. No one would blame you. Zhuofan ruffled his hair, like a devil on his shoulder, pushing him towards malice and destruction. But Gu Santong shook his head vehemently. Dad taught me the value of reading, taught me honor. I won't disgrace his teaching just because he died. Good child. Zhuofan nodded but inwardly sighed. Such an ambitious sapling got ruined in an instant. But all bookworms are suckers. But that's fine as well. How else could I've had such leeway if this kid was immoral? Zhuofan felt like extending that goose scholar a gesture of gratitude. Thanks for having misled this mighty kid onto the path of a bookworm and off my kill list. Zhuofan rejoiced and showed a sneaky grin. You must always listen to your godfather. He was right. Gu Santong nodded, falling for Zhuofan's ploy like a baby. By the way, what did you mean when you said I reminded you of your dad? Zhuofan's eyes beamed. Gu Santong blushed, turning meek as he mumbled. When you held me as we charged in here and protected me from lightning, remind me of the time when Dad protected me and told me to escape. Oh, I see. Zhuofan exclaimed. The kid took my act as fatherly love. The difference here though was while that Gu guy loved kids, Zhuofan loved himself. His selfless act in protecting Gu Santong was also he could have him under him. That his death would be such a pity. If the scenario was instead a one guaranteed survivor, Zhuofan wouldn't hesitate to throw the kid to the wolves. Who knew this act would lead to a huge misunderstanding instead? So Zhuofan showed a queer smile. Santong, how about I'll be your dad? This rotten and shameless punk even had the balls to call the kid by his name to get closer. Gu Santong seemed opposed to the idea, feeling quite awkward as well. Why would I do that? I'm 300 years old. And how old are you? That's too queer. What's so queer about it? You may have 3 centuries over me, but you're a child at heart and need looking after. Zhuofan shouted his righteousness, his tone growing soft, and we are also here by fate. I was fond of you the moment I saw you. Really? Gu Santong was expectant. Zhuofan nodded. Damn right I am, particularly of your insane power. I like that the best. So hurry up and work under me like a good little soldier. Gu Santong rubbed his chin and lifted his head. What's in it for me? Why, you little prick? Zhuofan cursed inside, but he soon accepted the fact. Since all kids were pricks, I can protect you. Do I even need your protection? What was that just now then if not protection? Zhuofan said also you may be unreasonably strong, but far too gullible and easy to dupe. Just think if you hadn't readily believed that guys lie ending up protecting the imperial family for a millennia, wouldn't you be exacting revenge on the 7 houses by now? Accept me as your godfather and I will safeguard you, as well as show the world who they really are. Bloody bastards dare to cheat my son? You must be tired of living. Zhuofan sputtered, talking big words that made Gu Santong laugh, but still couldn't stop from making the kid feel warm inside. We, father and son, are the strongest and smartest combination. Did you see that old guy and the 4 little shits listening to every word I say? They are all stronger than me, but aren't they still hanging on my every word? That is wisdom. The wise controls and so do the powerful. Gu Santong bobbed his head. Zhuofan finished off with his biggest sales pitch. Join me and with my power, no one will pick on you. Above all, you will never have to eat that garbage ingredients again. If I can find an 8th grade, I won't ever give you a 7th grade. Zhuofan then showed him 27th grade ingredients. As a token of my sincerity, these are all the 7th grade ingredients from my ring. I also admit all those other ingredients I've given you were already in my storage ring. Only the 8th grade ingredient had to be found. I truly had to enter the lightning array and suffer untold hardships for it. Chapter 242 Ancient Sacred Beast, Soaring Qilin. Chapter 242, Ancient Sacred Beast Soaring Qilin. In the middle of laughing, Zhuo Fan's eyes bulged. He shivered and under a purple lightning's effect spat blood. When the blood hit the ground, it exploded and left a black mark. Gu Santong cried, "Godfather, are you all right?" "I'm fine. This purple lightning is just too powerful." Zhuo Fan wiped the blood and panted with a grave look in his eyes. The purple lightning exceeded his calculations. The part that he failed to refine with demon transformation art roamed around his body just now and caused disaster in its wake. But he had no way to stop it either. This was akin to slow-acting poison. He knew it ravaged his body and would one day rob his life, but couldn't do anything about it. Looking further at the rocks and yellow sand, Zhuo Fan took a deep breath and stood up, his face hard. "Santong, help me search for anything suspicious." He knew the purple lightning was one of Heavenly Emperor's abilities, and the Emperor must have had to have a way to dispel it. He had no choice but to scour Heavenly Emperor's remnant and find that cure. Gu Santong nodded genially and helped Zhuo Fan up. "Godfather, you can just call me Young Sanzi. That's how my old dad used to call me. Anyone who was friendly with me called me that." Zhuo Fan nodded, smiling weakly. "All right, Young Sanzi. Go scout ahead." "Understood." Gu Santong cupped his hands and skipped away. Having recognized Zhuo Fan as godfather, and finding someone close to him, did wonders for his ego, even ignoring the ceaseless rumbling above. Since Zhuo Fan was right behind him, he had nothing to fear. The duo had been wandering this endless stretch of yellow sand for over 6 hours but still couldn't reach the end. Zhuo Fan ceased his walk and frowned. Gu Santong stopped as well and looked back. "What is it, godfather?" "Young Sanzi, don't you feel we've been going in circles?" Zhuo Fan looked around and his doubts grew. "Damn. It's a bewildering array." Gu Santong's eyes widened and rushed to him. "What a bewildering array. How could I've been fooled by it?" Gu Santong pouted. Basing his confidence on his previous shallow experience, he had nothing to fear and smiled. "No worry, godfather. See how I punch through it." Gu Santong lifted his small fist and struck. But the usual sight of seeing a ripple level 100 miles of land didn't appear. The ground just shook a bit then quietened. Gu Santong was dispirited. "This can't be. This never happened before, not once." Zhuo Fan shook his head, having already guessed it. This was not your average array, but one set up by Heavenly Emperor, one of the 3 strongest emperors of ancient times. If a little monster could simply force his way through, then the Heavenly Emperor would have been an empty title. If he could break this array so easily, what would then be the point of finding some Heavenly Emperor's remnant when I could straight up take this little monster as master instead? "Young Sanzi, save your energy. Come here." Zhuo Fan shook his head seeing him punch everywhere. "Young Sanzi, I want you to be honest with me. You've never been here before?" Gu Santong shook his head puzzled. Zhuo Fan frowned. "Then why are you afraid of purple lightning? Did you see it before?" "I haven't." Gu Santong paused then shook his head in the end. "How strange. This is the first time I'm seeing it, yet I felt instinctual fear towards it. At its thunderclaps I can't help but shiver. It's not like the common lightning, which I hate but am not scared." This was odd. According to Zhuo Fan, the kid had to have a connection with Lightning Canyon, but now. Scratching his nose, Zhuo Fan mulled it over. "Can't be. No one has instinctual fear against anyone, not to such extent at least. Was it perhaps ancestral memories?" Its killer was no secret either. The owner of the 12th Heaven Purple Lightning Gold Eye, Heavenly Emperor. Could this perhaps not be the Heavenly Emperor's remnant, but his slaughterhouse instead? Chapter 244 First Stage of Divine Eye of the Void. Chapter 244 First Stage of Divine Eye of the Void. When people spoke of Heavenly Emperor, one of the 3 strongest ancient emperors, they always mentioned his greatest abilities, the purple lightning gold eye on his left, and the divine eye of the void on his right. The divine eye of the void was also the first magical ability he comprehended when he entered the emperor stage. It held such unbelievable power that not even purple lightning gold eye could come close. Zhuofan was stoked. For fear his two brats would interfere, he even gave them a sign to keep quiet, yet his eyes and ears never missed anything the image revealed. This was a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Missing a single word would leave him with endless regrets. The divine eye of the void is a supreme ocular magical art. Place your attention on the word void. It is another word for emptiness. Only in emptiness can one have space. And to be one with the emptiness is a virtue. After all space is emptiness and not emptiness at the same time. Heavenly Emperor's image stood tall as he imparted the art. Zhuofan didn't even blink, afraid of losing even a minute gesture. Gu Santong and the chick could feel how important this was to Zhuofan and stood quietly at the side. For 3 days and 3 nights, Zhuofan hadn't moved, hadn't spoken, hadn't even blinked for how engrossed he was. The Heavenly Emperor ended with, "I have imparted you with the 12 stages of divine eye of the void. You now hold inside you the power to make our clan supreme. All you need to do is will it." Regarding my second magical art, purple lightning gold eye, it was born out of this divine eye of the void. If your talent is not lacking, it will come to you with time without having the need to train it. If you lack in any way, seek out the other imparting stone of mine to help you train it. But if you wish to follow in my footsteps and reach my power, stop here. Take what I've given you and use your own abilities to attain comprehension of it. The mist dissipated and the Heavenly Emperor's figure faded away, leaving behind the pieces of the imparting stone. These pieces had now turned to useless hunks of rocks. Zhuofan frowned. Gu Santong asked, "What's wrong, Godfather?" "Nothing, just that the last phrase was odd. As if he didn't want his descendant to train in the purple lightning gold eye." Zhuofan's eyes squinted. Gu Santong laughed at the sky and mocked, "What does it matter what he wanted? It all comes down to your decision to train or not." "Of course I want to. That's one of his masterpieces." Zhuofan widened his eyes. "Then what are we waiting for? I'll help you search for it." Gu Santong jumped right in to scrounge through the rocks on the ground, looking for another imparting stone. Zhuofan shook his head in the end. The Heavenly Emperor didn't want for his descendant to train the purple lightning gold eye, but deduce it by himself instead of blindingly following the teachings of others. And yet, he was still afraid his descendant was unable to achieve it, so he left the training method for the purple lightning gold eye behind. Zhuofan, however, was not Heavenly Emperor's descendant, so there was no point in abiding by Heavenly Emperor's teachings. Who cares? Waste not, want not. It's here anyway, so I might as well use it. But what struck him as odd was that the image clearly intended to leave it all for his descendant. So how on earth did it end up being taken advantage of by this down-on-his-luck rebirthed demonic emperor who stumbled his way inside? Looking at the jutting Qilin leg, Zhuofan was in deep thought. Who the hell cares? Since it fell in my lap, if I don't take it, who will? Zhuofan grinned and scoured the place with Gu Santong. The chick was skipping around at the side, chirping oddly. "What is Daddy and Bro doing? Looking for worms to eat?" Chapter 245 Getting Out. Chapter 245 Getting Out. "Young Sanzi, here comes my punch." Before Gu Santong could get his wits about him, Zhuofan shouted. Gu Santong mocked in the end, "Dad. Dodging is easy but punching." Starting with a flicker, a purple lightning shot for him. Gu Santong's eyes widened and instinct screamed at him to dodge behind the pillar with a jump. The lightning crossed space in a flash, striking the pillar with a boom. Gu Santong peeked out and saw Zhuo's fist wrapped in purple lightning. "Gee, Godfather, how can you use purple lightning?" "Ha ha ha, that's thanks to Divine Eye of the Void." Zhuofan flicked his hand, being smug after seeing young Sanzi's reaction. He finally got to show off in front of his godlike adopted son of his. The Divine Eye of the Void pays emphasis on the void part. Its main use is control over space. The first stage allows me to switch places anywhere in my soul search's range. Zhuofan's right eye flashed golden and Gu Santong's ring appeared on his finger. Allows me complete control over inanimate items, changing their location. Ha ha ha, young Sanzi. Since you ate all ingredients from it, you won't be needing my storage ring anymore. Even Gu Santong couldn't help but gawk at the explanation and display of such an outstanding art. This was the first time in the life of Invincible Scamp to show such a shocked face. Won't that make you invincible since no one can hit you? Gu Santong blinked. Scratching his chin, Zhuofan nodded. You can say that, but not quite either. If the first stage of Divine Eye of the Void is so invincible, what would be the point of the remaining 11 stages? In truth, this is only control over space. If space is sealed, or I'm inside another space, I'm finished. To then what's with the purple lightning? How? Gu Santong stammered. Zhuofan grinned and his right eye flashes purple. After training Divine Eye of the Void to the first stage, my right eye can open up a pocket dimension. Those purple lightning remnants that wrecked my body and couldn't be removed are now stored in that pocket dimension. To use them at my discretion. That is why I said cultivation isn't everything. I may have used most of my time on healing and comprehending the first stage of Divine Eye of the Void, but true power is a whole other matter. Zhuofan grinned, leaving Gu Santong dumbfounded. Despite Zhuofan not having gone through immense changes in the past 5 years, training in a remarkable art turned him into a freak nonetheless. If Gu Santong hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Going out like this, he'd be like a wolf hiding among sheep, ready to strike at any so-called expert out there. Who'd ever suspect a 9th layer of bone-tempering cultivator to have such an insane trump card? To then what of the second stage, Godfather? Let me see it. Gu Santong was eager to witness even more of Divine Eye of the Void's power. Blushing, Zhuofan coughed drily. Divine Eye of the Void is very hard to understand. Even I only learned the first stage after so long. Gu Santong's face sank in disappointment before he even finished. Zhuofan scratched his head, helpless. The kid's face changes tune faster than the weather. But then he said something that brightened Gu Santong's day. But since this space has the same origin as my Divine Eye of the Void, we can now leave this place. Young Sanzi, you'll get to eat more ingredients. Awesome. Gu Santong jumped 10 feet in joy, already back to his cheerful self. He heard Zhuofan say that before but didn't believe him one bit. Now, after Zhuofan's demonstration, he was very much a believer. Shower also flew before Zhuofan and circled Zhuofan in jubilation. Zhuofan laughed and repeated his explanation before showing his thunder ring. Don't resist as I place you in my ring. We will then shortly leave this place and get you out. Shower flapped its wings in joy. It felt very close to the thunder ring since it was refined from its mother and entered it without complaint. Gu Santong was hesitating. Godfather, wait a moment. Gu Santong turned to the pillar, fell to his knees and knocked his head on the ground 3 times, tears streaming down his face. I do not know who you are, but I know you're my kin. I don't know how you died, but I feel heartbroken over your death. I am leaving now, leaving you alone. I need to report back, but where will you go? At the moment of their separation, Gu Santong still felt reluctant to leave. Taking a deep breath, Zhuofan put on a diabolical grin. Since it's been 5 years, it's the right time for the esoteric debate to start. I'm going there to liven the mood. Let's see if those legendary Regent Estate freaks can live up to the expectation. Ha ha ha. Grandmother spoke gravely. Qingcheng, whether he comes or not, I hope you will keep your distance from him. I met him once. His ambition is unhealthy, much greater than we can imagine. Such a man is very attractive, but also one who can easily harm women. In his heart, women are burdens, beings he finds no value in. For your own sake, don't get too close. Chu Qingcheng was silent, alone with the bitterness in her heart. But I can no longer go back. In another part, deep in Sword Marquis's abode, there lay a stone gate on the verge of opening. 2 youths came from within, Xie Tianyang and a youth with white temples. His eyes were cold like a blade. There was also the on and off flicker in his eyes, but if one looked, he'd feel 2 sharp swords stabbing him. The pain would be too much to keep one's eyes focused on him. He was none other than Sword Marquis's abode's leading talent, Xie Tianyang's elder brother, one of the 6 dragons, golden armored sword dragon Xie Tianshang. Tianshang, Tianyang, you're out. Xie Xiaofeng laughed and patted their shoulders. Xie Tianyang snickered. Dad, I've mastered our house's entire martial art, flowing space's 9 forms. I can now marry Ninger. Xie Tianshang gave a curt nod, walking past Xie Xiaofeng into the training area. I'm off to practice. Later. Xie Xiaofeng felt helpless watching his sons. The eldest was a martial fanatic, always thinking about training, never getting close with anyone, while the second was a love-struck fool. The only thing on his mind was marriage. If he hadn't been smart and tricked him into lifting the sword for her, he probably never would have had. Xie Xiaofeng sighed. It'd be great if they were combined into one. Jian Suifeng came from behind. Abode Lord, don't worry, Tianyang's temper will smooth over time. As for Tianshang, he only has one person in mind. He won't stop until he defeats that person. You mean the Regent Estate's monster? Xie Xiaofeng sighed. Forget it, I don't want my son to tangle with that monster. It will only bring us shame. Jian Suifeng nodded and sighed. In another part, in the rear gardens of Veiled Dragon Pavilion, a youth in fine green clothes was taking a walk and showed an infatuated look. Ah, the air is so much better outside. Bliss. Eldest young master. Longzhou rushed over anxious. When did you get out? Why wasn't I informed of this? If you'd be throwing some congratulatory feast to ruin my mood. It was better to come here and get some peace. The youth's smile turned odd. By the way, Uncle Jiu, what of little Kuei and little Jia? How come I don't see them? Ha ha ha, they're hard at training. AI, when will they come out? The youth asked. With a vague chuckle, Longzhou said, Eldest young master, you've been in seclusion for a decade. There are many things you have missed. If you'd have witnessed the Battle of Drifting Flowers edifice, you'd have been as stimulated as them. What do you mean? The youth rose an eyebrow. But Longzhou only smiled in response. Kids these days won't work hard without a well-placed stimulus. Similar occurrences happened in the other houses as the 6 dragons and 1 phoenix came out of seclusion to join the esoteric debate. Especially in Caged Dragon City, people gathered outside a secret room on the mountain behind Regent Estate. As the stone gate moved, 2 people were made known to all. One was a calm youth, his every step at ease and firm. His incredible air made even the profound heaven elders step back in shock. Behind him was High Venerable Huangpu Fenglei with pride in his eyes. High Venerable, any progress? Huangpu Tianyuan asked. Huangpu Fenglei caressed his beard with a smile. I oversaw his training personally. He is the pinnacle in the world, second to none. High Venerable, that is hardly the case. If not, like every single time, the esoteric debate would end with only the 7 houses competing. Wouldn't that be too boring? Shuddering, Zhuofan looked back to see 3 elders. Every one of them was wearing a cloak to hide their features. The elder in the middle revealed his piercing eyes and grinned. Steward Zhua, I've long wished to meet you, my soul brother. I am Prime Minister Zhuge Changfeng. Care to join me for a chat? Zhuofan's eyes widened and he looked at him deeply. Oh. He never thought that the head of the 4 pillars, Zhuge Changfeng, would personally grace him with his presence. Glancing at the 2 elders on his sides from their mighty aura, he could tell they were rare experts. With a deep breath, Zhuofan nodded. Zhuge Changfeng grinned and made a flourish. The 2 then walked side by side to a table. The 2 elders stood behind Zhuge Changfeng and their eyes flashed, sending an energy to envelop the table. The noise around them slowly ceased and their words were never heard by the people outside. Yet to the untrained eye, the 4 looked like they were having a casual chat. The dealer and the big man looked baffled for a minute and then ignored them. Zhuofan was shocked and became wary of the 2 elders. No average Radiant stage expert could just set up a barrier so casually, not even a peak one. The 2 must have trained in some special cultivation method. They weren't to be taken lightly. Thinking about Zhuge Changfeng, he may only be in the 2nd layer of the profound heaven stage, but he was surrounded by many powerful people. He was a man no one from the 7 houses dared underestimate. His name as the head of the 4 pillars was well deserved. Just now, these Luo clans 12 fought with the renowned second-rate clans 100. Yet none of them was injured heavily even when the opposition had peak bone-tempering experts among them. This forced people to see Luo clan in a different and frightening light. Not to mention Luo clan's strongest had yet to take the stage. That rumored soaring demonic dragon, how outrageous was he? You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.